last press conference.
Well, they've got their stuff on it. Oh, it is taken. Sorry.
We're standing. Did we lose somebody? Well, thank you all for coming, and as some of you may know, we held a press conference this morning in Phoenix, and at the Tucson lawyers' all insistence, we said we have to have one in Tucson for the local media here too. So Louis graciously agreed to do this on 1 hour sleep and answer your questions. Initially, as you know, all of us here assisted the Arizona Justice Project in working on this case, and we're all pleased and honored to do so and be part of the team. But the people that really did the hard work over the last 10 years is the Arizona Justice Project, or known as the Innocence Project. And they've been working with Louis and went through the bowels of the county attorney's office to get files and fire department records, and found evidence that had not been disclosed at his trial that would have been exculpatory for him, and presented the case to, as you know, the panel of 5 national experts who unanimously concluded that there was no evidence of arson, and that using 2012 science, that the cause of the Pioneer fire is undetermined. It could be accidental, could be electrical, could be arson, but reviewing all of the available evidence using the science of today, no competent expert could conclude that it was in fact arson. And as you know, you need an arson to have an arson conviction. In fact, I think with the state of the evidence in this case, I don't think there's a credible arson expert in the country that would testify that this was in fact an arson case. So we're left with that. What we're all a little disturbed about is that for inexplicable reasons, the county attorney's office refuses to admit that Louis is innocent. And I don't want to guess as to motivations, whether it's to protect an old conviction or to protect an office, but any neutral person who would look at the evidence as it exists, you could not conclude that there is sufficient evidence that Louis Taylor committed a crime. We believe he is innocent, but even if we weren't on his side, it's virtually impossible for anyone to look at the evidence objectively and conclude otherwise. And my belief is anyone who is, for whatever reason, afraid to admit that this man is innocent, really it reflects more upon their judgment and analysis than it does on Louis Taylor. So you're not here to hear me, and later other lawyers will give you some perspectives, but Louis is here to say some words, some of which will be the same words he said this morning, and answer some questions. Louis, how do you feel?
I feel great. Yeah, it feels good to have Mother Earth underneath my feet, free Mother Earth. But it's been a long journey, you know, and like I said, we kind of bombarded, you know, with press conferences. We did like 2, and then we got to do tomorrow. We got to do CNN, but you know, I'm happy in the outcome. You know, I think the whole world knows that I'm innocent. But I wanted to also, you know, I watched the 60 Minutes program that was on last Sunday, and you know, they asked Barbara the Wall, you know, that you know, what was happening, and she said, well, he got convicted at the trial, you know. And so when the Innocence Project in New York, you know, the best experts in the world, man, discredited all the fire sign evidence, they inadvertently went to the prosecutor's office and found a report. It was the Trails Girl report, because I got convicted on the premise, you know, that I had squirted a lighter fluid on the walls and lit books and matches, and that's how the fire started. Well, the Trousdale report said that they found no excisions of any kind, and it was found in the prosecutor's office hidden, along with jury tampering. They had tampered with the jury, and you know, ex parte communication, and I was hoping that Barbara Lawal would do the right thing, you know, because morally, you know, she's not invincible, you know, and I can't understand for the life of me that she wouldn't exonerate me, and I wasn't going to give them another minute, another day, another hour, another decade, you know, and I wanted to be free, you know, but, you know, I persevered, you know, through a lot of adversity, you know. I went to college, trade school, you know, worked as a medical technician in Florence. I'm just going to move forward, you know, and but, you know, soon the world's going to know I was innocent. And I appreciate, you know, you guys coming here. I'm a little exhausted, but, you know, I want to give the old Pella an opportunity, you know, because I grew up here as a kid, you know, and but, you know, life is good, you know. It's just unfathomable that they did this to me, you know, 42 years, and I, you know, the one guy that spoke at the hearing, you know, he showed compassion to me, you know, and there was only one person that spoke about it, and I wanted to give him a hug, you know, because, you know, like Ballestero says, you know, I make 9 trips upstairs, man. Each time I open up the elevator doors, I seen a young kid with a little afro, you know. He had kids in his hands. He was pushing elderly people in there, and not once did I get in the elevator myself. But you know, there's nothing I can do but, you know, move forward, and you know, life is good. You know, I still got, you know, I have an amazing team. You know, the Innocence Project in New York, the Justice Project. And, you know, my lawyers believed in me diligently, you know, unwavering, man. They knew I was innocent, and unfortunately, a lot of my lawyers ain't here, but I do have a dream team, and we meticulously went through this case from 2001. And it's just unfathomable to me that this woman, who's a public official, you know, who represents people from Pima County, that she didn't do the honorable thing. And whatever reason she has, you know, one day, you know, she has to meet her maker, you know, and but, you know, I'm very happy that I'm out. I spent some time in Sabino Canyon hiking yesterday. You know, I don't smile that much because I'm missing some teeth. I'm fixing to get those fixed here pretty soon. But I love this place, man, and I want to reiterate too. You know, they were saying all this and that, and all the time I was troubled with the law. I never hurt anybody in my whole life. You know, I was a breadwinner in my family, man. My house was in downtown, and I can't imagine, you know, that I lost all my family, you know. But, you know, I'm happy, you know, to see you people and give you my story, you know, and you guys got any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
We were talking a little bit about this outside. It's called that Apple telephone, Apple iPhone.
Yeah.
So common now. I mean, this is a completely different world.
Yeah, technology. Well, I was trying to call 5 girls yesterday, and they all gave me you know, I had to speak on a speakerphone because they were home. And man, back then in 1970, we only had 8 tracks, and we had to dial the phone. So, you know, I gave up on that last night. I called all the girls this morning, and like I said, I'm just bombarded. You know, I'm kind of tired. I didn't sleep all night. You know, and I spent a day, you know, with Dr. Beckman. You know, she's a world-renowned linguist who did some work on my case. And I spent some time in Sabino Canyon, you know, and her little mutt fell in love with me, you know, and but, you know, life is good, man. But I was hoping that Tucson, man, you know, the town that I grew up in, would do the right thing, but she didn't, you know, and she's protecting something. So like I said, you know, the evidence is all conclusive, you know, that they did a bad deed, and all I can do is just move forward, you know, and that's all I can do.
What's next for you?
Well, you know, I got a lot of options. You know, like I said, I finished high school, trade school, college. You know, I used to work as a medical technician in Florence for 3.5 years, saving lives. And, you know, I was minimum 3 times, and, you know, a lot of people were running off, escaping there, you know, because they used to always tell me, come on, Louis, this is escape, man. You got natural life, man. I says, man, only the guilty run away, you know. And I waited, you know. And Charles Hardy, who, I forgive him, you know. He allowed all that stuff to happen, and you know, a month later after I got convicted, he came to visit me. You know, he wrote me letters. He came to visit me. You know, he sent me money, food packages, and he wrote to the governor, Simonton, at the time, and he was trying to find a way to, you know, that's the same judge who said he would have never convicted me if he was a juror himself. But, you know, like I said, he became a real famous jurist. You know, he was a federal judge, Charles Hardy, and like I said, I forgive him. You know, he passed away, and we're good friends. But you know, it's good to be out. You know, to feel Mother Earth underneath my feet. You know, and I'm just glad, you know, the grace of God that I survived. You know, and you know, it is a true story, a great story. You know, and I hope people can learn from it. You know.
Louis, you said yesterday that there was more to this story. What have we not learned yet?
Well, there's a lot of aspects. You know, the Pioneer Hotel held a lot of secrets. You know, one of the firemen, Van Sant, you know, he gave us an affidavit, and he said that the fire inspectors in that building were given lavish gifts and stuff to undermine the conditions of that hotel. And but when my case came up, you know, there was 3 or 4 fires prior to that. They brushed out underneath the rug, you know, and you know, it's just a terrible injustice, you know, and I'm just glad I survived, you know, and you know, like I said, it's just under the grace of God, man, that I survived, and you know, I still, you know, I'm African American, Mexican American, I got longevity, you know, I'll be good. You know, I just need to get my feet. I don't want to smile because I ain't got no teeth. I'm gonna get those fixed when I get to Scottsdale here tomorrow or next week, whatever.
So what kind of support system did you have in and out?
Well, I had a great support system, you know, because I got adopted by the Lanoffi family, you know, a Jewish family. Of course, you guys know, you know, in 1971, I was going to a private school in Tucson, you know, living with Harvey Cashman, my attorney who represented me. But, you know, the whole world is embracing me, you know, and I had a good support system, you know. And, you know, I got educated. In fact, you know, I won a big lawsuit against DOC in 2003. I acted as my own attorney, you know, and so I'm pretty sharp. You know, I can't imagine anybody being in prison, you know, and innocent or guilty. The education's there to grab it, you know, because you're gonna come out a better person, you know. And you know, a lot of people encourage me, you know, and you know, a lot of people embrace me, you know, and this is a tale of true tragedy. You know, the 29 souls who died there, and me being convicted, you know, but. You know, like Ballesteros says, you know, I made 9 trips up there, and each time I went up there was a young boy, you know, he looked like a Latino with an afro, and not once did he get in the elevator himself, you know, and I wish I could have did more, you know, but, you know, it's really a tragedy, you know, on both sides. And, you know, when I watched the 60-minute program, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't sleep all night thinking of Barbara LaWall, because she should have did the right thing, you know. She's not morally invincible, you know. She's a Pima County attorney who's elected by the public. And if there's an injustice there, she should have did the most honorable thing. You know, why did she let me get out of prison, you know, but have doubts, or have people have doubts? That's a miscarriage of justice, you know. She has an obligation and duty to exonerate me, and you know, I don't know for what God's reason why she did the way what she did. But, you know, like I said, you know, she's going to meet her maker one day, and she's going to have to answer for it.
How did you get through those early years as
well, you know, I stayed in contact with my
after?
lawyers. You know, like I said, I went to school, college, you know, I studied civil law, and I went minimum. I got to prison in 72, and 76, I was already minimum. You know, I was working out in the dairies, hog farms, you know, I was corn-fed, you know, I was eating good, and I just make the best of the worst situation there is. I mean, that's all you can do, man, is just move forward, you know. But, you know, like I said, my team, you know, they believed in my, you know, I mean, diligently and unwaveringly they believed in me. And like I said, you know, in 2010, you know, when the best experts in the United States discredited all the fire science evidence, they inadvertently went into a prosecutor's office in the fire department, and they discovered jury tampering, where they dismissed jurors that were leaning on my side. And the trails that were the most important. If you know, Unklesby, it's easy for him to say something like, well, we're you know, back then when I came out on 60 Minutes the first time, well, we're going to look into the case, you know, this and that. It's hard to speak on television programs and this and that. But if they would have looked in there, They found the Trailsdale report, which said they found no accelerators of any kind on the fourth floor. How did they let me rot in prison for 42 years?
How did you not give up, or did you? Was there a plan?
I couldn't give up. I was innocent. There was no. They offered me parole when Simonton was governor. Charles Hardy wrote him many letters. I got the letters, and the Innocence Project got all those letters, man. And it's horrific, man, because he was trying to get the governor to give me a commute or a pardon. And at the time, I hope you guys don't mind saying me this, Fife Simonton was committing crimes behind the back door when he got caught up in that thing, and instead of answering my outcry, and it just, I fell into the cracks. How could that happen? The best justice system in the world, how could I fall in the crack for 42 years?
Can you take us back to that night you were arrested? That one of the men who arrested you had mentioned that when he'd asked you to produce the matches in your pants, that you'd had kind of a strange look on your face.
No, he didn't tell the truth. And not only that, you got to look at it. Look, in science, no matches started that fire. And when I was interviewed without attorneys and without stenographers or recording devices, the police gave me matches. I was a smoker, and those matches did not start that fire, because if you light up a book of matches and you throw it somewhere like that, if that water don't hit it, the remnants of the match is going to be there. The staple's going to be there, and come on now, it's 2013. They did a bad deed, man, and and Rex Angeli, who was one of the detectives who interviewed me in 1970, he's the one that tampered with the jury.
But did you know what was going through your mind when they asked for those? I mean, did you think that?
No, when I got to juvenile, he got them from my windbreaker in my pocket, and I told him, well, I got some of these books and matches where I got interviewed because they gave me cigarettes and matches. And he acted like it was nonchalant, like he said, oh, don't worry about it, and then he just threw them in the trash. And then how could they use them against me when that fire wasn't started with matches? And it was highly prejudicial, And like I said, it's the tale of two tragedies, the poor souls that died there and my conviction. But, I'm glad I persevered, and tell my story of it.
You probably know this.
Walls around you now. What did it feel like to be at Sabino Canyon with no walls, no one?
Well, it got dark. We left the cell phone out. We don't get stranded, so we had to. We told them, let's hurry up and go back. Because I don't want to be on my first day of freedom lost at Sabino Canyon. So we found our way. We couldn't bring the little mutt with us because we can't bring dogs to Sabino Canyon. So.
You probably know this case more better than anybody with all the evidence that you've gone through. What do you think happened that night?
I don't know, man. It's like I said, the Pioneer Hotel held many secrets, and like I said, prior to that fire, there was 4 fires that were in that hotel, and unfortunately, Mr. Steinfeld and his wife died there because they used to always give him phone calls up there. And he would say, well, I'll assess the damage, I'll call the fire department. And all of a sudden, when this came up, they brushed all that evidence underneath the rug, So, the Pioneer Hotel had its secrets, and we brought them out. This case was looked into with a microscope, man, since 2001. Experts, witnesses, forensics, linguistics, everything, man. And I think my dream team did a marvelous job, and I'm very proud of them.
Did you always think this day would come?
Yeah, there was light in the tunnel. Once I knew that the Justice Project in New York and the Justice Project, there was light in the tunnel there for me, because I knew it was going to be brought to light.
I was talking with one of your friends yesterday. I believe his name was JJ. He was.
Well, I don't know names. 42 years, man. A lot of people. They got a lot of nicknames, JJ, and this and that. But I know it was JJ. I don't know if it's him, but there's like 5 in the system. 42 years, I remember 5 of them. So.
He was saying that he was roommates with you, and that every single day you would tell him, "I'm getting out.
Yeah.
Just trust me. I'll see you."
Well, I had hopes. I had hopes, man, because. When you bury something that's as foul as this case, man, it's going to start to smell, And, but, I grew up in this pueblo, and, Yeah, you know, I was a breadwinner in my family, you know, but I never hurt anybody my whole life, you know. I took care of all my family. And all my family died already. But, you know, I persevered, you know. You know, God is great, you know.
Louis, you're talking about how technology has changed in the last 4 decades. How much of this situation do you think is the result of forensic technology changing?
Well,
and how much do you think was incompetence or the other things that you've been naming?
Well, you know, look at Cy Holmes, man. You know, here you got the biggest tragedy in Arizona's history, man, and they hired a forest fire expert. I mean, come on now. And then before he came back 10 days later, he never spoke to any witnesses. Before he went in there, he said he was going to do an independent study. And Gilmore and the engineer, Miller, who followed him, and he gave him the same synopsis of what's going on. And then before he went in there, they said, oh, by the way, we got a little colored boy in custody. Come on now, you know. It's a miscarriage of justice, you know. And, you know, like I said, you know, when I met that guy at the courtroom, you know, the person that spoke, he showed compassion to me, you know. He says, Louis, you know, don't mess your life up, you know. And I wanted to hug him, you know, but my lawyers told me, you know, keep my composure, you know. But it's a tragedy, man, you know. And all I can do is move forward, man. Any more questions?
You seem to...
Where are you going? You think you'll stay in Tucson?
Well, you know, right now I'm staying in Phoenix, you know. You know, I go to a cabin in Sedona. I got a lot of options, you know. You know, it's just, you know, I love this town. You know, I grew up in it, man, you know, in Myers and Conway. I went to Carrillo School, Safford, you know, and it's a nice little city, you know, a nice little town. And my sister, my twin sister, when I got convicted, she ran away. And he found her in Globe, dead. She drank herself to death because her little twin brother got convicted. I mean, I can't understand for the life of me why this woman in the wall did this, man. And like I said, you know, someday she'll have to answer to a higher authority, you know.
Let's let Louis take a break for a second. No, Stanley
I want
Fellows.
to speak to the rest of the team.
Yeah, and then,
Let me address your question for a moment, if I may.
It'll be all right, huh?
You asked about the
You're my sister?
technology changing.
Yeah. My twin sister? Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Hey, I want you to talk
I
as
didn't
much
mean
as
that.
you want to talk.
No,
Louis.
go ahead.
You asked about the technology changing. Part of the evidence that apparently still convinces the county attorney is the testimony of Cy Holmes, despite the fact that we now know that, you know, a couple of hours after he had started his investigation, he stopped it to go give a preliminary synopsis to city councilmen and others, in which he told them, we now know, that he was able, based on what he'd seen already, to profile the, quote, culprit. And he told us at the deposition, I only got 2 things wrong. What was that? Well, I said he was an 18-year-old Negro, when in fact he was only 16 and he was half Hispanic. That's part of the reliable foundation for the case for the county attorney. That technology hasn't changed, although the world has moved on. Another part of it was the several hundred measurements of something called depth of char Mr. Holmes made. He made them with an uncalibrated blade of a pocket knife. The Tucson Fire Department, in its report, quotes the NFPD standards. And no surprise to this to anybody, as saying that you can't take those measurements with a sharp instrument like a pocket knife because they're unreliable. That technology hasn't changed. I mean, we had calibrated instruments to do measurements in 1970. I believe only Cy Holmes today believes that his measurements were still accurate. Even the Tucson Fire Department, now if you go to their website, has put a disclaimer on there. Oh, Cy Holmes has nothing to do with us, he's not our guy. That's not a change in technology, although investigative techniques were primitive at the time. What has changed is that fire science has gotten a lot more sophisticated, and credible fire scientists who've looked at this say that because of the extent of the fire, the flashover and the full room involvement, it can't be known what started the fire. And it's not because of evidence that's been lost, it's because the understanding of fire scientists have changed.
Does the Justice Project have any idea how many cases there might be similar to this around the country that improved investigative techniques might clear?
Arson cases?
Yes, arson specifically.
I was going to turn to Andrew Hacker. We actually, we're volunteers who helped the Justice Project. You have a staff member standing in the back of the room, one of the unsung heroes of the case. Do you know the answer to that?
You had to call me out, didn't you?
Come out here, Andrew.
No one really knows.
He's part of the dream team.
Yeah.
In response to the question, how many cases like Lewis's might there be around the country, no one knows for sure. There was a case in Texas about 10 years ago that I'm sure you've heard about, the Cameron Todd Willingham case. He was convicted on evidence, like in Lewis's case, now known to be unreliable, and ultimately executed after that conviction. Texas has since created, and I might get the name wrong, but it's something like the Forensic Science Commission, which has gone back and looked at several dozen arson convictions in the state of Texas to see what the integrity of those convictions might be. The expert who did the review of the Cameron Todd Willingham case said that he is personally certain that there are several hundred innocent people in Texas alone. These sorts of techniques, like in Lewis's case, are not unique to Texas or Arizona, so there's no reason to believe that there aren't several hundred or thousands of similar cases around the country. And that's sort of the best we can do right now. We just don't know.
The other thing, keep in mind that initially, the Pima County Attorney's Office wanted him executed, and the prosecutor handling the case, and had they been successful in that portion of the case, Lewis wouldn't be here, and this would not have been exposed. So it's another chilling note in the case that they wanted to execute this young man for that. Now, Justice Feldman, you...
Yeah, I think it's important. It's important to realize that while there are undoubtedly several hundred or maybe many more arson cases around the country where bad science was used to convict, this case is sort of unique. This was not just bad science, it was no science. And it's not, in my mind, reading all the thousands of pages that this file comprises, and having looked back at the 20 years I spent on the bench reading transcripts of other trials with significant charges, I have never seen a case where anybody got convicted on so little evidence and such poor evidence as this. It is just, as he said, a shame that it happened. I don't think it was changes of technology so much, as Noel just explained, as it was really bad work, bad science, and a lot of other bad things. And I think what I'd really like to say is this about the whole process and the whole system. We like to think of the American system of justice as the best in the world, and in many, many ways it is. But it's a system that is maintained, operated by, and dependent upon the integrity of the people who run it. There was no integrity to this prosecution, none at all. We had a prosecutor whose shenanigans in other cases resulted in the reversal of convictions simply because of misconduct of counsel. We had a prosecutor and I think a police officer also here who withheld evidence that was exonerating in nature while the prosecutor argued in court about the existence of that evidence. The prosecutor argued in court here about accelerants, the use of accelerants, while he had in his pocket, in his file, a report from their own experts that there were no accelerants found. That's not just bad prosecution, that's a lack of integrity. We had the use by the prosecution of a blatantly racist expert. I mean, just blatantly a racist expert who actually told these things to the city council. It's not like it was a secret. He picked out Lewis because Lewis was the only young black man there, and as he said, everyone knows young black men are more likely to set fires than anyone else. And nevertheless, they went ahead with this prosecution. They hid the evidence. And I can go on one thing after another, but let me suffice it to say there was no integrity to this at all. You know, Charles Hardy and I were friends, and I have a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for him. But he was a trial judge. If he felt so strongly, I mean, he said afterwards that he would never have convicted, but if he felt so strongly about it that he was writing letters to the person to whom he sentenced to natural life, and that he was writing letters to the governor trying to get Lewis commuted or pardoned, if he had that strong a conviction, he had the power to grant a new trial, and he didn't do it.
Another thing I want to point out, it's very rarely, man, in post-conviction relief where prisoners show actual evidence of innocence. And when that does surface, people should pay attention to it and just not undermine it like she did. But I forgive everybody, you know, who's involved in that, you know. I know most of them are all dead now, but I don't have no ill feelings to this town or the people who did this bad deed, but it certainly is a miscarriage of justice, you know. And I just thank God that I persevered through such adversity and I did something myself in prison, you know. Because someday I had a dream that one day I'll be out, you know. Like I used to tell the guys, I'm not going to run off. Only the guilty run off. I want to stay and wait for the court. But
I mean, I want to add one thing to what you said.
go ahead.
I want to add one thing to.
That's actually just for.
Okay, I want to add one thing to what Justice Feldman said about the integrity of the prosecution. None of us claims that prosecutors like Horton Weiss are in that office today, but the county attorney acknowledged to the group of us, to the team that is representing Lewis, in a conversation we had about 2 months ago, when the subject of this prosecution came up, that she had looked at the record and she found it appalling. That's her word, although I wholly concur with it.
Who was that?
Barbara Lowell. She said the prosecution was appalling. Now that was a private comment to us, although there was no understanding that it should be kept private. We've been waiting for her to acknowledge that to the public. We were waiting for not only an acknowledgement of that, but an acknowledgement that the conviction was unjust. An appalling prosecution, the withholding of evidence, the other things that Justice Feldman has talked about and that we described in our petition, racist elements to the prosecution, all of those warranted a vindication. Instead, we have a deal offered. And while we discussed this a bit this morning, imagine the leverage that a prosecutor's office has when it says to a man who's been in prison for going on 42 years, take this deal, plead no contest, this will go away for us, and on April 2nd you'll be free. Refuse this deal. Continue as you have for 42 years to insist on full vindication, and we'll fight you. We won't win. We can't win this case. If it goes to a new trial, we can't win it. They basically acknowledge that in court. But we can fight you for another 3 years or 4 years. We can take appeals. And if you want to stay in prison, that's okay, turn it down. But you can be out on April 2nd. Imagine the unbearable pressure that puts on to plead no contest and make it go away. So we all understand why Lewis made the decision he did. As lawyers, of course, we would have liked nothing better than to keep fighting this case. But the paramount concern, as Lewis has said, is that he not spend another minute behind bars. So we've achieved that, but we didn't get total justice.
Well, I was not enthusiastic about continuing to fight for one reason, because he couldn't afford, and I don't mean money, I mean time. He couldn't afford 2 more years, 3 more years, or whatever it took in prison. And so we had to take the deal, as Noel just described. But I want to say something about the county attorney's office. Again, back to the integrity of the system. The integrity of the system and the survival of our system of justice as a fair and unbiased system depends on being willing to confess the errors that were made in the past and trying to avoid them in the future. And if you don't confess what's been done wrong in the past, it's going to get done wrong again in the future. So the integrity of the system, and this is directly related to what both Lewis just said and what Noel just said, the integrity of the system depends upon coming clean, so to speak. Yeah, this is what was done in the past, and it shouldn't have been done, and it was wrong, and we have convicted somebody unfairly and unjustly, and we've got to see that it doesn't happen again. We're not going to use prosecutors like this. We're not going to hide evidence. We're not going to do all the things that were done in this case. And that's what needed to be said here. You know, after all, it was not Barbara Lawal's office that did all these things 40 years ago. It was someone else's office. But I think that the current office, and I know them and I respect them, I think the current office had an obligation to the whole system to say, we don't approve what happened in the past. It was wrong. We recognize the wrong. And we're not going to require Mr. Taylor to take the kind of deal that we ended up requiring him to. Because he had no choice. He had absolutely no choice.
Question for Lewis. I mean, you've had a long time to think about this, and I don't know if Disneyland is in the picture, but what do you want to do? What do you...
Well, you know, we all went to In-N-Outs, you know, and I got a T-shirt, you know, and I had, you know, everybody was wanting a picture and stuff, you know. I didn't hardly even get a chance to eat the hamburger.
But what are some of the things you want to do?
Huh?
What are some of the things you want to do?
Well, you know, I just want to tell my story, man, you know, because like I said, you know, Horton Weiss, you know, when I was going to the private school, man, he was really derisive, man, towards his adversaries, man. He was disrespectful to the court. You know, he was contemptuous to his obligations of disclosing evidence, and Charles Hardy let him hide the Trasdell report. You know, there was excommunication with the judge secretly, and he bombarded the judge, and the judge told him, "Are you sure there's a report that's floating around? I heard there was a report." And Mr. Weiss says, "Oh, we don't know of any report." And yet it's found in the prosecutor's office 39 years later. I mean, come on now, it's, you know, he was a monster, you know, and I don't have no ill feelings of him, you know. It's just, you know, he's gonna have to meet his mate, you know.
Let's see, Mr. Cashman yesterday. Had you kept in touch with Howard?
Yeah, I kept in touch with him through the years. He was just bombarded. You know, the police officers wouldn't talk to him. You know, the county attorneys had all the resources, man. Here we had a man that I lived with his family, that he invited me to live with his family. When I was going through the private school in Horton, we did all that, you know, against him and stuff. And yeah, he's my hero too. You know, it's just unfortunate. You know, he was just bombarded. You know, and you know, I love Tucson. You know, maybe someday I'll come. You know, stay here. But right now, you know, I made a vow to my sister, man. I'll stay away from Tucson for a while.
Do you have a career in mind? You mentioned some of you worked in Florence as
Pardon me?
Do you
Yeah,
have
I
a-
worked, when I finished college and trade school, I worked as a medical technician, EMT 1 and 2, and I was saving lives in there, you know, it's all on my record, and I saved a guard, or I tried to save a guard, you know, when Maureen Buckley got killed in Florence, you know, we hit Buckley in the shower and we put trash cans around him. This man had Down syndrome and had been to Vietnam, and some inmates had killed, you know, Maury, and Buckley kept telling me, Lewis, please don't let him kill me, man. And you know, at that time, it was one of the most dangerous penitentiaries in the United States. And I told Buckley, first we get a chance, I'm gonna put you in that shower and put trash cans around you. And DOC let him bleed to death. He died, you know. But you know, I'm not no monster, man. You know, it's just, you know, I just want to move forward, you know, and I want to give you guys an opportunity, you know, so I can tell you my story. You know, I got to get up tomorrow at 5:30 and talk to CNN live. So,
Is there a lot of national attention?
Are you going to keep fighting to clear your name?
well, no, at this point, I mean, what is there to clear? You know, if this woman doesn't want to cure the injustice, you know, that's on her. But I'm not going to give them another minute, another day, another decade. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous, man.
We think anybody that has read the petition and looked at the evidence and is not willfully lying to what happened has cleared his name. We've received emails, letters, communications. On the other side, the county attorney's office has received hate mail for that. And I think they're reaping what they sow. And unfortunately here, when you have leverage, think of any of you and close your eyes and I say, spend a week at that hellhole in Florence or get out today, and all of us would trade just about anything. Now, say, would you want to spend there 2 or 3 more years in that place, and assuming you survive those 3 years. So when they have that type of leverage,
Thank you.
although the lawyers told Lewis on the evidence he will be released, he is going to win. There is not one juror in the world that would hear this evidence and vote against him. There is not one judge, any neutral judge, that could vote against him on this evidence. But there are procedures, technicalities, and all these things the county attorney's office could throw up that could delay that day, including appeals. And then your choice is, I'll get out. Do I want to get out now? As long as I can tell everyone I'm innocent, I'm not going to admit guilt. And they agreed on that. And he's out today as opposed to sit there for 3 years. And that's one of the bad parts of our system with the power that's given to state officials. And if you note other big cases, the Memphis 3, same tactic used. Macomber, same tactic used, where the offer to get out today, but stop the fight against them. And if not, spend a few more years. And there are very few souls that could, you know, it's a limited amount of time we all have left. And Lewis hit it on the head. He didn't want to give him another second, minute, hour of his energy. And he has been vindicated. He has been cleared by the evidence.
I've been being embraced by the world, man. We get emails from all over the world, you know, and I read the New York Times magazines this morning, and people in England know it, you know, it needs to be put out, you know, because, you know, we got supposed to be one of the best judicial systems in the world, you know. How can something this terrible, tainted, you know, go on and everybody turn a naked ear to it, you know?
Mike, why did it take, and there's been so much doubt for 40 years, why did it take this long?
Well, I'll let Andy address that. I could, but Andy's been involved in this case for 10 years. And recognize this is volunteer, or more, this is volunteer people who did this. The lawyers, we got involved at the end. Andy Silverman and law students in the Justice Project had the Herculean task of gathering everything.
Thanks, Mike. As Mike indicated, I'm Andy Silverman. I'm the faculty at the law school here, and I coordinate the work of the Arizona Justice Project here in Tucson. And the Justice Project began in 1998, and we got involved in the project a couple years after it came into existence. And Larry Hammond, who was one of the founders of the Justice Project, immediately told us, he says, he knows the case that we need to begin working on, and that was Lewis Taylor's case. And in 2001, we began our work. And the first thing that we did, and again, as Mike indicated, we recruited some law students to work on the case, and they all worked voluntarily. They didn't get any credit or pay or anything for their work. And the first thing we did is contact the county attorney because we found out that as far as the court records were concerned, there really wasn't much there. But we wanted to have access to the county attorney's files, and it took it took a while for that to happen, but when it did, a team of law students and one volunteer attorney, Jim Kaye, here in Tucson, spent day after day after day in the county attorney's office, going through their files, copying certain parts of their files, reviewing everything that they had. And that really started us. And from there, law students and I and Larry Hammond and the staff of the Justice Project continued to work on the case. And the law students really did a lot of meaningful things, including writing actually the first draft of the petition. And the reason that it took so long, I think, is Lewis said, we were very meticulous. I mean, it's amazing. I've never worked on a case as we went into it. One, we found out new things all the time, and that many of them, of course, became claims in our petition. And secondly, any time that this case got any publicity, and over the years it would get some publicity, and people would contact us and say, I know that Lewis Taylor is innocent, I was there that night. One person that Lewis mentioned was the elevator operator.
Ballesteros.
Right, she contacted us. Many people contacted us about this case, and of course we followed up every one of those contacts and talked to those folks. It also took us a number of years. We knew that the fire science aspect of the case was a primary part of any challenge we would make up to this conviction. And it took us a while to get this panel of 5 national fire experts, investigators, to look at this case, again pro bono, and to evaluate. So we had to put together all the evidence that we had. We had to get it to them. Obviously, it took them a while to go through the evidence, the 5 of them to meet and discuss it and come to some conclusions and write us a report. So that, again, took some time. Through it all, we knew that we were representing an innocent man, and we knew we weren't going to stop until we got some relief. And obviously, it took us a while, but yesterday, even though it wasn't what we all wanted, it was wonderful to see Lewis walk out of prison.
Lewis, you talked about telling your story. Will you write a book?
No, there's another person that's writing a book, but it's like I said, it's a tragic story. It's a tragic story. It's a tale of 2 tragedies, man. 29 innocent souls died in this fire, and like I said, Pioneer International Hotel had a lot of secrets, and they weren't straightforward, but they hid everything, and just like the prosecutors did. It's just, I just hope people learn from it. You have to be mindful. Like I said, very seldom do inmates produce in post-conviction relief. They very seldom show evidence of actual innocence. In this case, it showed a whole bunch of innocent evidence, and people should pay attention to it, because it's a travesty, and it helps other cases. I think the focus should stay on the Pima County Attorney's Office, and in the last 30 years, there's been a lot of stuff coming out of there that's, the Ken Peasley, the El Grande market killings, there was a lot of fixed evidence, and, I think the focus should stay on the Pima County Attorney's Office, and I just hope people learn from that.
What was the actual mechanism that actually brought this day here? And what I mean is, I know that you've been speaking with the county prosecutor's office about this, but did you finally say, we have enough that we're going to file an appeal and we're going to get heard?
What we did is the Justice Project, who gets the most credit And every time you get a call from Andy, it's, do you want to do free work? So, the petition, and Noel Fidel, and Justice Feldman, and other lawyers edited it. We gave it to the county attorney's office and agreed not to file it to give them an opportunity to make the case go away. We waited and waited, and finally we said, enough is enough. We filed the paperwork, and that's when the process, we couldn't wait anymore. That's when the process began, and they had a deadline to file a response. Shortly before the deadline, the offer is, if he pleads no contest, he can assert his innocence, he gets out. On the other hand, if he doesn't, and we said, no, we want full dismissal. No, then we'll fight it, and if we lose, we'll take it up to higher courts and see you in a couple of years. We knew we'd win, but it was only a question of when.
There was one other element in that. During that period when they had our petition, we agreed, and they agreed, to take 2 depositions to preserve the testimony of the 2 elderly experts who had testified originally. One was Marshall Smythe, who testified for the defense, who's now, I think, 93. The other was Cy Holmes. So even though we hadn't filed the petition and started the process running in court yet, those depositions were taken. Marshall Smythe, who not only did the Justice Project team dig through the files for years, but Marshall himself, with failing eyesight, dug through the files. I think he's the one who found the Truesdale report.
He was.
2 years ago. But Marshall testified. He's completely changed his view of what happened, and now acknowledges that the cause was indeterminate. And his testimony is summarized in our motion. The other deposition was Cy Holmes, and it was only in deposing Mr. Holmes that we discovered the profiling elements of his opinion.
And then they also sent it to the Tucson Fire Department to
yes.
see if our experts are right. Because Mr. Smythe really was an insurance company expert who ended up testifying before the defense, and he's one of the heroes. He, for no remuneration, spent days and hours because he was tormented by his initial opinion, which was based on state-of-the-art fire science, or based on his perspective then. As years went on, he realized he made a mistake, and Mr. Smythe had the courage to tell us that, and the courage to spend weeks reanalyzing it. And he's at 93 years old. You know, he spent a lot of time, and no small task. And then the county attorney's office sent all of these things to the Tucson Fire Department, who agreed with then the other 6 defense experts.
Another thing the law students did is spend days with Marshall Smythe because of, as Noel says, failing eyesight, reading to him these records. And so that's one of the other things that the law students did in working on this case. One other thing I want to add, the Justice Project here at the law school actually has been very successful in the last few months. I mean, one now with Lewis Taylor's case, who's was in prison for almost 42 years, and a few months ago, a woman that we have been representing for many years was released after 49 years. So if you know anyone who's been in for 40 plus years, you know where to send that person. We're very good at that.
And when you were talking about the students going in and looking at records at the county attorney's office, what was the reception there at the time?
Well, it was cool. I mean, you know, it took us a while to get in. I mean, once we were there, you know, they did allow us to read anything other than what they considered work product. So I guess they were going through the files. And then after working on the case for about 10 years and knowing much more about the case than we did when we first went to the county attorney's office, we again wanted to go back And that was even more difficult to get in because obviously one of the things they said is you were, you know, we opened our files to you a decade ago and, you know, that's enough. But finally they did let us in, so, you know, to review their files again, because obviously in 10 years we learned a lot about this case and various claims that we didn't know anything about when we, you know, first started the case.
Real quick, Mr. Taylor, you were talking about being back in Tucson. Is it tough to be back downtown?
Pardon me?
Is it tough to be back downtown specifically?
No, not really. You know, like I said, I might come down there, you know, again. It's just right now, you know, I'm doing fine in Phoenix, you know. You know, I was born and raised in St. Mary's Hospital, you know, and you know, I love this town. It's just, I'm just, you know, just taking it a day at a time.
You seem to be settling well, though. Is
Yeah.
it tough to kind of adjust back to?
Well, you know, the technology, like I said, I tried to call Five Brokers on his Apple phone, and they all gave me emails. I mean, there was nobody home. So,
Well, how are you gonna sleep tonight?
I slept good last night. Yeah, after we took a walk to Speedo Canyon, you know, we had a great meal, and you know, this little mutt fell in love with me, you know, and he was a cutie pie. But you know, like I said, you know, I just got to move forward, you know, and you know, tomorrow, you know, I got one more CNN conference, and I hope they give me a break for about a couple of weeks.
I didn't know a local attorney has offered you a job with benefits.
Yeah, with benefits and stuff. You know, like I said, you know, I'm pretty smart. You know, I educated myself. You know, I did the right thing in prison, and you know, I just take it from there. You know, that's all I can do. You know.
You take him up on it?
You got. Yeah, maybe.
Could be staying in Tucson,
Give him
right?
a couple of weeks to kind of get his feet on the ground.
Unless you give them better offer.
Well, maybe I can be a news reporter.
Yeah. It's easy.
Any chance of civil litigation?
You're innocent, you can't be innocent.
No, you know, the thing is, you know, everybody talk about losses, this and that, man. You know, it ain't about losses. It's just, it's about, you know, trying to correct this miscarriage of justice, you know. It was a terrible nightmare, you know, like I said, you know, God, you know, allowed me to persevere this long, you know, with such adversity I was facing, and, you know, I'm gonna walk out with my head proud, you know, and that's all I can do, you know. And,
The question you asked about lawsuits, I'm not sure about whether or not this was a motivating factor for the position that the present county attorney's office took, but the fact that the charges were not dismissed and that he was instead required to plead no contest diminishes the possibility of any successful lawsuit appreciably. So,
Do you think that was really their motivation, that you got such resistance?
I don't know. Why don't you ask them? I'm not a mind reader.
you know, there's not enough money in the world, man, that can correct this injustice, you know. It ain't about money. It's just, you know, just they need to keep the focus on the Pima County Attorney's Office, because, like I said, you know, there's a lot of stuff went wrong there, and people turned a naked eye, you know, and you know, the Pioneer Hotel had its secrets, you know, and we discovered them, you know, and it's just, you know, like Mr. Smythe, you know, this man here was 93 years old, and he discovered the Trailsdale report. He didn't know the significance of it until later on, and you know, he was just blown away. Of course, he had to do a different hypothesis, because he testified on my defense. He said an accelerant had to be used on the 4th floor, and when he found this Trailsdale report said that they found no accelerants of any kind, then of course he knew he made a mistake, you know. But you know, my heart goes to him. You know, my heart is immensely full of gratitude with him. You know, because 93 years old, like Mr. Silverman was saying, you know, people had to read this stuff because the guy is 93 years old. You know, so bless his soul. You know.
He was there when Lewis was released, and to watch his work vindicated. He's one of the heroes of the story.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there's a lot of heroes, you know, and like I said, I was immensely, you know, I got a dream team, you know, a better team than O.J. Simpson for sure.
We had a lot better clients.
one lesson to be learned, Mr. Mooney asked me last night, he said, well, how come all you lawyers agreed to do this for nothing? I guess there's two possible answers. One is if your secretary says Mr. Silverman from the law school or Mr. Hammond from the Justice Project is on the phone, you could tell him we're out. Or you could say, okay, I'll take the call, and then you got to do what lawyers are supposed to do.
In fact, me and Mr. Hammond, we're going to a baseball game tonight. Me and Ed, and we're going to go see the Diamondbacks.
And we'll let him go there. If the
Make sure he buys you a good seat, too.
If the accelerant doesn't fit, you must have quit.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I appreciate you guys coming, and I give you guys an opportunity. You know, I thought that I seen a lot of Tucson media when I did the press conference over there with 60 Minutes this morning, but I gave you guys an opportunity, and thank you for coming, you know, and hearing me out.
Thank you.
If anybody would like a copy,
Yeah, I was a certified medical technician.
if anybody would like a copy of the petition.
Yeah, it's on. Well, you know, because plead no contest, I can't ever get a job because you know it's. But yeah, it was a good job, and you guys have a good day.
You too.
Tim.